All right, Ohio political news coming to you here live and in person, as always. Whoo! Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I tell you what, got to get some coffee in me here. I just got to get a little coffee. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Nice to see you. Jonathan.
Jonathan,
ready for another exciting evening here.
I got to do...
So I'm going to interject here smoothly, but right now it's a little bit choppy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's on my end, but if it's happening for all of us, we should pause and figure that out. Are you guys getting some choppy video and audio?
It's coming in choppy. You are absolutely correct. I can tell because I'm getting an orange. Whenever the orange light comes on, which you guys can't see, but I see it, that means that the stream is not at... Now it just turned red, which means now we're back to normal.
Yep, good.
Yeah. So it will come and go. So that's... Hey, when you're dealing with a budget of 35 cents, you know, this is the best you can hope to do, okay?
Oh, wow, you upped the budget.
This is the...
Yeah, so you doubled the
budget. Yeah, well, 35 cents, man. That's a lot. That's like a cup of coffee. That's what that is. We got a great guest. Shannon Burns joining us. I hope at 7:30 we'll have... I asked him to come on. We could talk about all kinds of politics stuff with him. He's got the largest Republican group in the state of Ohio, the Strongsville GOP. They're number one. They're number one, and they had an event just recently, a Christmas party, with just a few friends. 600 people showed up. 600.
Wow.
You know, Joe, if I can interject.
That's crazy, off the charts. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I think Shannon Burns and the Strongsville GOP do very, very well is interacting with other conservative GOP clubs. So you've got Fairview and Parma and a bunch of other conservative clubs, and I actually see on a regular basis the leadership of those different Republican clubs talking to each other. We should have way more of that than I see. There are places that, I don't know why, but they seem to act like they're sort of an island in and of themselves. And that's not the way to run a political organization or political structure. So Shannon Burns, I think, in part, has grown the organization as large as it is because he knows lots of other people and they collaborate on things, events and endorsements and those sorts of things. I think that's a big part of the recipe for success.
You got it. You got it. No question about it. Okay, I want to talk here. We're going to talk a little stuff. We're going to talk a lot of stuff, but I want to talk this right first because Governor DeWine signed some property tax reform bills into law. Brian, I don't want you to see you doing any cartwheels or anything, okay? Because that probably that could be dangerous to your health. But yeah, I want to see if you're going to be doing any cartwheels with this because
too little, too late. Too little, too late.
All right. So we got House Bill 124, 129, 186, 309, 335. All of these passed by the signing of our governor, our beloved governor, who had said, I got to read this here. This is funny because he said, first of all, this is a historic event, the signing of these 5. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but weren't these like in House Bill 96 and he vetoed every one of them? But all of a sudden...
Probably some variation of them. I don't know if it was exactly that.
Probably not exactly, but probably something very close. And he vetoed every one of them. Then he put together a tax reform group, which was a failure of epic proportions. They didn't accomplish anything. It was a joke. And now he's coming back and signing those and saying this is the greatest thing ever in the history of Ohio.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Lake County Auditor, Chris Galloway. He was on that committee and he was trying his best. But when he mentioned about consolidation of the school districts, boy, they all grabbed their heart and they thought, oh my gosh, we can't do that. That may save us some money, so that's not allowed.
Right. So let me tell you what else DeWine said, okay? Other than saying that his signing of these 5 bills, absolute historic proportions, He also went on to say that it was necessary, that it was absolutely necessary for him to do this. And I'm just like really totally confused by the whole thing, because these were very similar to the bills that he vetoed, one after the other. Now, he did throw in another caveat here. He says there's going to be total chaos if this in-the-works citizen ballot proposal to abolish property taxes entirely makes its way into the Ohio Constitution in 2026. Total and complete chaos.
What a fearmonger, really. He should be embarrassed, really. He's developing quite a legacy. When we remember, 10, 20 years from now, history will show, Governor DeWine, alleged Republican, wasn't really for the people. He was for the Haitians, that's about it, and maybe the Somalis in Columbus. But for
10,
the
20
average
years.
citizen,
Try 10 or 20 seconds from now.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the end of the show, or even right now, it's so obvious. What do you mean 10
I stand
years from now?
corrected. I stand corrected on my time frame.
Very much
The
so.
guy's, he's absolutely not a Republican. He's a rhino at best. And let me back up a step, and I want to engage in some conversation with Brian and bring something out onto the table. We've been navigating what it might look like once we, the people, step in and pass this citizen-led initiative to abolish property taxes. And it's a beautiful thing watching this thing happen. And I want to put it into context with two pieces of this. One is, remember a couple of years ago when the far left were pumping billions of dollars into Ohio to capture and override our Constitution and just put all kinds of leftist mayhem? And we were trying to fight back, right? Making it more difficult to tinker with our state constitution, to pass supposed citizen-led initiatives, because that's a weak point. Ohio is one of the weakest constitutions in the nation. So remember that, all that conversation that took place, and there were a lot of people on the conservative side saying, no, we want it to continue to be easy for us to drive citizen-led initiatives like abolishing property taxes. They weren't saying that specific issue back then, but people were saying we should keep it easy and we should make it available for we, the people, to drive something through legislation, to get it done, to get it passed and into Ohio. Well, now we're actually doing it, and we've got all these people clutching their pearls, like Mike DeWine. People like him. That's ridiculous. But in my book, more importantly, I want to touch for a moment on the school district thing. And just like lots of things on the right, we're not people that march lockstep. We're going to have some disagreements, but how we navigate that is important. We need to have open discussion. I don't actually agree with the notion of consolidating school districts. We have to be very careful, because in every instance I'm able to find, when we centralize, we lose power, we lose control, and things get worse. I think that there is plenty of fat to be trimmed and meat on the table for conversation about keeping local control of local school districts the way that it was meant to be. And remember, pause to hearken back to all the times I've said I refuse to call it a public school, because in a public school system, they would listen to the public and be responsive to the public. We know that school districts aren't. If we could force our way back to that, if we can get our way back to school districts actually responding to the public, and it's unfortunate that our society has become numb to the fact that our school board are nothing but cardboard cutouts. They're rubber stampers most of the time. They don't ever actually listen to the people and respond to our interests. But if we consolidate, we for sure lose that. There's no hope of getting back. So that's something that gets a little bit into the minutia of what happens after abolishing property taxes. And that's for something like the Brian Masseys and me of the world to talk through and navigate. That's one of the cool things
Well,
that I like
one
about
of the
these
things,
citizen-led
one of the
initiatives.
things we're going to have to navigate, and we've got another tax town hall coming our way January 26th, so we're going to keep plugging that. This is going to be out at the Auburn Career Center, but two things. One is we got to get the signatures, or all this is just a lot of hot air BS talk anyhow, so we've got to make sure that we get the signatures. The second thing is we've got to talk about ways of funding some concrete examples, because you just can't. What's going to happen is the fear-mongering is going to reach epic proportions, as we were just seeing. That's what you were just saying about what DeWine is saying here is fear-mongering. It's fear-mongering, saying that a very, very significant increase in the sales tax, an increase that would be so unprecedented that it would be more than any other state in the union. Now, I don't agree with that. I know that we've looked into this a little bit. You don't have to raise the sales tax that much. You got to doge. You've got to cut. One of the areas you could cut is with superintendents. All right, so if we didn't have 611 school districts, if we had 100, you could right away get rid of 111 superintendents with an average salary of $185,000 a year, plus benefits, and they can make some extra money on the side doing all kinds of things. And that's the average. Okay, there's a lot that go exceed 200 grand. Then you got 300 assistant superintendents. So we just, that right there is like 150 million bucks that could be trimmed away. And there's doge, and we could doge, and we can doge.
But I don't agree that that's the low-hanging fruit. If you look at that chart, we don't have it handy. I don't have it handy. But if we could look at that chart and go back and show the growth of the administrative state within education.
Oh, yeah.
Administration, well, we've seen sort of flatlining, or maybe actually slight decline in student population. We've seen massive expanse of the administrative state. That means all the critical race theory groups, and I call them the racisms, are all of these CRT people that are hired in, all of the counselors and the
oh, it's never ending. I got you. I just threw out this because I just happened to look at what was happening with the superintendents. I was just curious what their salaries were and if there was such a thing as a substitute or assistant superintendent.
Agree,
so we got all that stuff there. I understand. We can doge. There's no end to the doging that can be taking place, but that's what's gotta happen, and that's what we have to start bringing to the table are some concrete examples of what we can just cut away at.
I can tell you, gentlemen, that there was a Concord Township resident. His name is Bob Patterson. He wrote an article that regarding trying to answer the question that, remember, Jerry Serino says it was really irresponsible of us to abolish property taxes without having a way to replace dollar for dollar. So Mr. Patterson wrote an article that says, well, here's how you can replace dollar for dollar. He's not necessarily agreeing that that's what you should do, but he talked about a mixture of sales, income tax, and that sort of thing, and also the, cutting back on expenses. I think a lot of cuts can be made because I don't believe that the government should be in the role of valuation of properties. And when you take that assignment away from the government, that changes the ballgame altogether. So if anybody wants to see how an individual from Concord is thinking about how to replace dollar for dollar, you can look on Lobbyists for Citizens, and you'll see an article. It was a very good one, and I think he may be even sending it to the News Herald. So that's I don't agree with dollar for dollar. We're looking at, as Jonathan said, actually cutting the expenses, and the civil discussion will be on, well, where do we really cut? Jonathan, may not be in total agreement with us, but at least we start the dialogue to say, okay, if we all agree on cutting, what makes the most sense? And we have to get our legislators involved. And the three of us can, talk, forever, but unless you get the legislators to buy in, and that's where the pressure is going to be applied to the legislators by the teachers' unions and the police and fire unions. So the unions are going to have a lot to say about it.
Oh, they're going to have a ton to say about it.
Hey, Joe, let me
Yeah, go ahead.
interject. There's a really critical connected question to that. So, Brian, we're going to have some fun with this, and you'll like this question. Our audience will as well. When we're talking about the idea of a starting line, talking about dollar for dollar, why are we talking about current numbers? Why aren't we talking about pre-COVID numbers? Because if we're talking pre-COVID numbers, and back then we were saying that's a ridiculous amount of money flowing through the administrative state of our education system, what is that, a 35% drop right out of the gate? Those pre-COVID numbers for funding Ohio's education system are dramatically lower than they are now. And I still have yet to have anybody come back and try to answer the question, who feels that it's justified that now that we've lived through COVID, that suddenly schools are 35% more expensive? We thought that they were too expensive in 2018, 2019 at $124 million a year budget in some districts that are now $165 million a year. That's pure insanity. So what is it that changed that's that much more expensive?
Well,
that's my question.
Yeah, I got you. Well, okay, I want to bring in another guest. We got George Satari with us. George, you out there?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
hello,
very
George.
good. But you're out there again in voice only. In voice only, correct?
Well, remember, I'm on Monday Night Roundtable, which is a radio show, and I have a face for radio, so we're going to keep it that way.
Got you. Yeah, Monday. So wait a minute. When is that show on again?
Tuesdays.
The second Tuesday of every month, right? Okay, so Monday Night Roundtable on 12:20 a.m. here in Cleveland, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, 7 to 9 p.m. 7 to 9 p.m.
Yeah, Joe, first of all, I want to apologize for being late, but I was out buying books and games, and I have 4 grandchildren under 3, and I'm at Books A Million. I'm in line, and these 2 guys dash through not the metal detector, but the buzzer that sets off the alarm if the tag isn't disabled. So then, I cashier, took off after them. Some other people did.
Really, the cashier took off. They usually don't do that. So the cashier actually went after the shoplifters.
There were other cashiers there, so it's not like they left the till unchecked. And some other guy supposedly got a copy of the license plate by a photo on his phone. I told the manager I could have popped him with my 9mm, but I thought that would be a little bit of overkill.
If you would have popped him with the 9mm, you'd have been really late for the show, the podcast show. But go ahead.
Plus, I don't own any guns because they scare me. So what can I say? But listening to the discussion of expenses to cut, there's also another revenue source that I don't think has ever been discussed before. If someone lives in a school district and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 children going to school there, as a tuition, he should pay the real estate taxes that he was assessed up to the time the last child graduates. And if he's not sending his kids to public school, like let's say sending them to St. Ignatius or St. Ed's or whatever, he would not pay anything because his children are not going to public school. But if they are, he should pay some tuition, and we could calculate it based on what his real estate taxes were while his children are attending and were attending school up to the time the last child graduates. Something like that.
The problem
Why
is,
are we tying
George,
it to real estate value, though?
I'm sorry?
Why are we tying it to real estate value, though? Why aren't we assessing a flat dollar amount if it costs a certain amount per child? Because if you tie it to real estate, not only does that disincentivize young couples from having children, but it also leaves that whole big open question mark about who runs the valuation. So if somebody agrees to that, Ohio agrees as a whole, then suddenly in the future, you've got somebody that comes along, like happened this year and last year, like, oh, by the way, the value of your real estate is now up 33%. then all of a sudden, instead of that same child who's working their way through the education system in a local public school, government-run school, so now suddenly, instead of $28,000 a year, which is preposterous, but that's what's being asked of us, now all of a sudden it's 34,000. And also, when you get the individuals and only the families with children funding, you get that same corrupted system that expects $165 million a year budget, now trying to send a $1 million bill to individual families with 5 children.
Jonathan, I wasn't saying that's the only way. I said that's a component potentially, and it doesn't have to be tied to real estate taxes. It could be a flat, $5,000 or $2,000 or something. I know when I was looking at St. Angela's at kindergarten and first grade, second grade. Back then it was like $2,500. Of course, that was a while ago. So it doesn't have to be tied to real estate. I'm just saying, as a ballpark, paying some kind of tuition, chipping into the preposterous 24, 28, 32,000 people. And obviously
it's never going to go down either. It's never going to go down.
It has to come down. Again,
it has to come down.
Teachers are overpaid. They always give this BS that they're underpaid. They are, we've become the public. We've become the servants to the overlords, and they actually need to be making less than the average citizen in the private sector, not more, because as the old saying said, those who can do, those who can't teach, and those who can't teach become guidance counselors. So that has to come way down, but the teachers union is too strong and the legislature's afraid of them, and blah, 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 on and on and on. But it's a variety of things. Doging the system, getting rid of some administrators, maybe cutting down to 100 school districts or 200. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, but and let's face it, education is a disaster in the state of Ohio vis-a-vis the other states, and education in the United States is disaster vis-a-vis the other countries. So why, the emperor is wearing no clothes, but we all pretend teachers are underpaid. We all pretend they're getting good educations. Yeah, there's some good education systems and good teachers and, private schools and different things. But overall, we suck.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And I looked at some, you'll see like kindergarten teachers making $100,000 if they've been at the school district long enough. $100,000 to teach kindergarten. It's like insane. So these salaries, they're way off the charts. I think you were the one saying they only work 800 hours a year full time, right? So
that's the city of Cleveland.
800 hours. But that kind of makes sense because they get like 2-3 months off vacation. They get all the holidays, everything. So, and that's full time. Yeah, no. But the worst thing here, I don't care how much money you make. You could be a very successful businessman. You can make millions. I don't care. But when you're taking my money to pay your salary, which is what they're doing with the property taxes, they're just clawing out my money to pay them, then I draw the line. It's got to be bare bones. That's got to be bare bones so we can afford this. And we need to have some kind of a say in all this stuff too. It just can't be.
But Joe, what I'm finding is that many of commissioners, elected officials that say, well, you got to belong to the collective. I've been told, well, Brian, you've got to pay for the school because, somebody paid for you to go to school. I said, well, they weren't paying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for me to go to school. And it's incumbent upon the state officials to, reallocate this money that they're collecting from the other taxes for the schools. But I'm not in favor of replacing dollar for dollar on the schools at all.
I'm definitely not either. But when it comes to the big ticket items and doging the education system, I'll tell you, I'm all for evaluating salaries, and teachers' salaries are certainly going to be on the list, but they're item number 14 or 29 or something. First, on the list is probably construction and constant building, reconstruction, rebuilding, consolidation, expansion, new roof, new parking lots, new lights. It is a constant parade of inflated expense for building these Taj Mahal types of structures
That's 100%.
to undereducate children. So education, it has to be the primary, the fundamental job number one focus. Construction is probably at the top of the list. After that is all the administration. So we're talking about teachers who maybe make $100,000 a year, and candidly, I think we really need to assess the number of hours and the value. We need to bring back a merit-based system to evaluate teachers, not just simply tenure. But before we get to teachers, we've got that whole, the 29 layers of administrative state. The administrators are oftentimes making drastically more than the teachers are. And that's a lot of fat to trim. And candidly, if we were to err on the side of not suggesting this, but if during the period of time that it takes us to work our way through doging education, if teachers are making more, if they're making more than market value for some period of time as we're working through and trimming the fat in the administrative state, then okay, I'm okay with that for a period of time, because that's where the rubber meets the road. And that, if we could tie together an actual merit-based assessment system for getting rid of the bad teachers and praising and encouraging the good teachers while cutting other ancillary extraneous costs, I think that's the hierarchy of approach to doging education in my book.
Okay, now a couple of things. One is the teachers union is not going. The teachers union controls all of this. Okay, so you can flap and say you want this or that done. It ain't gonna happen. Okay, it ain't gonna happen. So the only way we're gonna make headway with this is with what Brian is doing and others. We abolish the property taxes, we nuke it, and we start over. Basically, that's what we have to do. And those salaries are one thing, but you got to remember every levy, it's like, for instance, in Cleveland Heights, 84% of a levy goes for the salaries. It goes for, their pensions, whatever. It's all of that. So that is 84% of a levy right there. And then
what happened to the elimination of the Federal Department of Education? I haven't heard anything on the news about that. Is that just been put on the back shelf?
I think they're working. I think they've almost done it. I really think they've almost done it. Was that Linda McMahon? Is that who was in charge of it? Yeah, I think so. I think to some extent they have done that. I hope.
It starts there, and also at the state level. The state Department of Education, what do they have, 17 or something people on that
19.
board? 19. They're making demands of, such stupid things of, keeping track of kids that are doing this or that. And is that really necessary? And does that, help the overall education system? So I think from the federal department and also at the state level, they should really watch what they're demanding of the local school districts, because that's adding to the cost.
Yeah, Brian, if I could speak to that. President Trump said, abolish the Department of Education, and that money that was going to schools at the local level, just send it to the states as a block grant and get rid of the bureaucracy, the edicts, the agencies. But we do have 17 members or 13 on the State Board of Education. But more importantly, we have 550 employees at the Ohio Department of Education.
Wow, I didn't know that. 550.
Wait, from the state?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
That's right.
Unbelievable. Okay, now coming up today, 7:30, we're supposed to have Shannon Burns. I don't know if Shannon's going to be joining us, unfortunately. And if he doesn't, then we'll have to get him back on again. But it's already 7:37. I just called him, went to his voicemail. So there could be some kind of a mix-up here. He may not be joining us. But the thing I wanted to talk to him about, and we'll just talk about this for a minute and get back to some of the other stuff, but I wanted to have him on because he is the president of the Strongsville GOP, and they're doing phenomenal work. So their last Christmas event had 600 people at it. So Strongsville GOP is unlike any other Republican group in the state of Ohio. And I wanted to pick his brain about how they grew and how they attract so many people. And it's the go-to organization, the Republican organization in Ohio. It really is. So, and I know that he played a major role in building it because he started it. Okay. And I just had to find out about that. So I'm not sure if he's going to be joining us. If he does, great. If he doesn't, so be it. Yeah, we'll get him on next time. Let me switch gears here for a minute. Did you guys see this about this Mayor Andrew Ginther? He is the mayor of Columbus, and he has said that they will not cooperate with ICE.
Oh, for crying out loud!
Yeah, we're not. Watch this for a second.
This is crazy. This is amazing. This is amazing. There's a guy playing a trombone.
What's going on here? This is somebody who took this with their cell phone, but ICE was staying at the Embassy Suites Hotel in Columbus, and they have these protesters that were blaring music to keep them awake, if you can imagine that.
This is so crazy. This is so crazy. There they are, a bunch of people. This is the hotel. And there's a bunch of police everywhere.
So apparently,
I think they're just trying to keep ICE awake.
Apparently, this mayor has no problems with that. The cops aren't doing anything to get the noise level down. And the other problem too is not every room is occupied by an ICE agent. Give me a break. So you're keeping all the other people awake too. I don't understand how they could even do that. But yeah, this guy, I don't know if you got anybody been covering this at all. This Mayor Andrew Ginther in Columbus.
I have a little bit.
What's your thought on it?
Yeah, so there's a post here actually from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement asking the question. So they've tagged a post that Mayor Andrew Ginther put out. I'll read Ginther's post first and then the response from ICE. Ginther posts on X, Columbus is proud to be a welcoming city. As federal immigration enforcement operations take place in our community, we want immigrant neighbors to know that you matter. You contribute to our economy, our culture, and the vibrancy of our city. We have your back today and always. That's what Ginther posted. So U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement tagged him and posted the following. Why are you against ICE enforcing federal immigration laws in your city and making Columbus safe for all Ohioans? And that's a spectacular comeback. I actually posted that. You'll see it if you follow Ohio Political News or me, J.R. Broadbent, on X. You'll see that, Joe, I tagged Ohio Political News, I tagged Ohio Rhino Hunters, and Assemble X Ohio. And my comment was simply drawing attention to this. Ohio is charting new ways to fail we the people miserably. Put this together with the story of immigrant communities defrauding U.S. taxpayers and funneling money to terrorist groups. It's awful. So we know this horrible bad stuff is happening. And then we get these people like Ginther, apparently is like the Tim Walz of Ohio, who just blatantly want to try to avoid our laws, rules, and regulations. They want to avoid the rule of law. It's no good.
Well, yeah, that's the point I was trying to make too, is this guy is blatantly against ICE, the federal agents. He's the mayor of the largest city in Ohio. And he is saying, he's taking the side of these illegal immigrants. And like, how can that be? And where's the backlash? And, so where's our governor, for crying out loud? Could you imagine something like this happening in Florida? I think DeSantis would probably be out there saying something. Our governor, he's not going to say a word. All right. It's right in his backyard, too, because he lives in Columbus. So Josh Williams, who is a state rep out in Toledo, is on X was saying that these left-wing lunatics are violating several of Columbus's noise ordinances, and then he's calling out Mayor Ginther. He says, "Do your job. Stop allowing this complete lawlessness in our capital city." And he's getting drilled. Ginther, the mayor, is getting drilled on X and other social media pretty relentlessly. I was just wondering if you guys had heard about that or not. If not, we'll move on. Anybody else heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard anything. But why are they opposed to making the cities safe for the residents? I mean, it's totally nonsensical to me.
Well, they don't care about safe. They care about votes. Votes equals power and money.
And,
I'm not sure.
Joe,
I'm not sure what he's up to with that at all in Columbus. But go ahead, George.
Joe, beside that, the Somali community in Columbus is very big, and some people are saying the numbers in Columbus will be greater in the fraud department than Minnesota.
Yeah, I heard that too.
For Medicaid, right? Was it Medicaid?
Well, across the board, rental vouchers and SNAP and all kind of stuff.
Yeah, amazing. And you see, this is what kind of irritates me is when I was reading, like, okay, the auditor is Keith Faber. Keith Faber is the auditor. They put out these audit reports that they are, everything is so pristine. It's so well coordinated, so well done. They're looking into Medicaid. They're looking into SNAP. They're looking into all of this stuff. There's nothing to see. Okay, and then we find out from some conservative doing her own investigative work, and we've heard from Mike Davila as well, state rep, that we're probably in the billions, easily in the billions for Medicaid, all this waste, fraud, and abuse, and yet the auditor's office doesn't find anything. Okay, so where's the accountability here? Why isn't anybody saying anything like that?
That's a valid point, Joe. Valid point.
Joe, well, I think the problem with that is, Joe, all these are federal programs, and Biden allowed them to go run amok. I don't believe Faber audits. He audits more like city budgets and city governments and checks and balances in, townships, municipalities, villages, school districts. I don't think he audits federal programs. They're given to the states as block grants, however they're given, and Medicaid fraud is not under his purview. It's under the feds, their inspector general or whoever, and Biden let the whole thing just get out of control deliberately. So, and now Trump is trying to rein it back in, but I don't believe it's a state function on those specific programs per se,
because they don't find anything. They find
nothing.
Like
I said, they may not be.
They're not even charged to look or anything. All right.
Again, well, if you said there was 500. There's 540 employees. Is that what you said in Department of Education?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How many employees are in the state auditor's office?
Don't know, but you have to remember. With all the different, school districts and libraries and townships and cities and villages. I mean, we have 1,300 townships alone. I think 500 or 600 cities and villages. Then you take library districts, school districts. Let's face it. There's about 20 different kind of entities within the state of Ohio. Type of entities, sewer district. NOACA type groups. I think Faber, the state auditor, is charged with looking at those, and they've nabbed quite a few people, stealing money, not having checks and balances, on and on and on. But SNAP, Medicaid, housing vouchers under HUD, these are all federal programs, and a lot of times they're giving to states under block grants. And again, I don't know the exact procedure for auditing it. I believe it would be a federal function, but Davila is looking into Medicaid, because I believe that's administered by the state or given to the state as a block grant. And then we're supposed to check on these people if they're actually qualified.
Okay, so you're saying it's, federally looked into. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to look into that. We'll have to look into that more closely. There is a Medicaid fraud unit under the Attorney General. And then I know that the auditor is supposed to find Medicaid fraud in Ohio. It's one of their jobs, and they claim that they do all of this reporting and they look at all these audits and they everything, but they don't find nothing. They don't find anything. All right,
Joe, let's bridge the gap between these two topics. Let's talk about the waste, fraud, and abuse of some of the immigrant community and illegal immigrants and school enrollment, because there's some indication that some of the school districts are propping up their enrollment numbers, which is driven by the desire to have that the per student the money that comes in based on school district enrollment. That there is some indication that there are some illegal aliens enrolled in Ohio's schools. Each one brings in a price tag. It's an amount of money that comes into the school. I have to sort of paraphrase. I don't remember the exact dates, but if a school district reports 3,000 students by something like September 15th, then they get all these federal dollars that flow in based on those numbers. And I don't think anybody's checking the authenticity of those numbers. We do have all kinds of opportunity for trimming fat there. I've heard some people talking about looking at actual enrollment numbers and looking through the student enrollment books, because there are a few facets to this. I'll try to be as brief as possible. But there's some indication that there are some student families that get enrolled automatically if their request to home educate isn't received by a certain date. So they might be on the books in a school district, but then don't actually show up. But the school district gets that money anyway. And where illegal alien families are concerned, there may be some number, and it might be huge within Ohio, of illegal alien families enrolling children. And once they do, then they're automatically eligible for all sorts of things like the food assistance program through the school, etc., which may be another avenue for defrauding the system. So if we're talking about ways of trimming the fat and scaling back this preposterously oversized budget for school districts, because nobody in their right mind should ever think the $145 or $165 or $220 million a year budget is reasonable in any way, shape, or form. Let's look for those things. And we need to be talking like yesterday about doging education. So that was my way of kind of tying the two topics together.
All right, we have another guy in here. So you're going to take the place, John. You're taking the place of Shannon Burns, okay? Because Shannon stiffed us. He didn't show up tonight. But we got you in. I put down Commissioner No, Lake County, because that's your new title. How you doing?
Well, I've been called a lot of things over the years, but Commissioner No is one title I'll take because I always vote no on taxes.
Yeah, well, I know. And we have another tax town hall coming up January 26th. And rumor has it you're going to be there. So we'll be looking at that also. Hey, let me ask you a quick question. You might have an answer to this. We were talking about Medicaid, and we were talking about SNAP, and all this waste, fraud, and abuse going on in Ohio. And I made the statement that the auditor, Keith Faber, he didn't find anything. All right? I mean, nothing. And then George was saying that these are federal programs, and that he doesn't look into it. Do you have any idea either way on that?
So let me say this. I think that as state auditors go, Keith Faber has been more disciplined and has pushed his job further than most. During COVID, he quite literally audited the COVID numbers and frankly gave Governor DeWine heartburn like you wouldn't believe. He just released a press release showing that 2/3 of the tax incentives that have been given out by the state have not been returned with the appropriate numbers of jobs and economic growth that were promised. And I can tell you, Auditor Faber got a lot of grief from the governor's office for putting that out. So I want to start by saying I think that Keith Faber has actually been a really strong auditor, historically speaking. That said, the job is simply not set up to audit federal programs like Medicare and Medicaid. And it's really not set up in a way to look at waste in any meaningful way. You can voluntarily ask the auditor's office to do a quote-unquote performance audit, where they do look to see, is your government subdivision, is your agency operating efficiently? But really all they do on a biennial basis for most cities, villages, townships, and local governments is to see if there's any obvious fraud. And they follow state law in the way they perform those audits, but they're not really penetrating. And so I think it gives people a false sense of security. It's not the auditor's fault, it's just that we have a system that's set up where the state auditor checks for obvious fraud, but really isn't engaged to look for waste and is not engaged to do a deep audit looking for deceptive types of fraud. And so, truthfully, a lot of the biennial audit process is a waste of time.
Okay, the problem I have here, John, is that they're saying there's literally billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid and some of these federal programs. But I know the state also contributes in some capacity, but nobody's finding it. I think that could be a big problem. But I'm going to move over to something else here. I want to talk about this. Okay, Senate Bill 293 was signed by Governor DeWine. And Senate Bill 293 is that there's no longer this grace period for elections. So the way the law in Ohio is, if you are doing mail-in balloting and your mail-in ballot comes in up to 4 days after the election day, it still gets counted. There's only 15 other states that do that. So 35 of the states have said that that's BS, we're not doing it. So finally, DeWine finally signed it so that we are no longer one of those states. Of course, this caused a little bit of an uproar, you can imagine, like the League of Women's Voters. They're all up in arms. That's the most liberal leftist group I could think of, the League of Women's Voters. Jen Miller is the executive director, and she says hundreds of thousands of Ohioans across the political spectrum rely on voting by mail. Yeah, they do. Even more than that, actually, probably millions. But just get the ballot in on time. It's not that hard. And we know that when you're looking at elections, all of the fraud happens with the mail-in balloting. All right, so this just seems like common sense. Any thoughts?
Joe, the BL bottom line is that a lot of dead people, a lot of dogs and cats are no longer going to be able to vote under the new system. So, I always say, my grandpa voted Democrat for the first time this year. Death really changes a man.
Yeah, a lot of the people in the cemetery become Democrats. I kind of figured that. Wow.
Well put.
Jonathan,
go ahead, Brian.
Jonathan. I was going to ask you the question. Didn't Marcel Stribich, he's all over on this subject matter where he wants to really tighten up the election laws.
Yeah, so there's been a little back and forth, tit for tat with, among other people, Allison Russo on the far left. She's a far left, ultra liberal, progressive Democrat, and she's advocating. I don't even know what she's advocating for. The year-round voting. I don't know. You can mail it in. She's ridiculous. But Marcel Sturbich has really put his foot down. If you follow him on X, you're going to see some very good, poignant responses from Marcel Sturbich on this whole issue. And I've put it this way in a few of my responses. This is similar to some of the things I've heard Marcel Sturbich say. But if you think about any sort of form that you have to submit to your bank by a certain date, or a payment that you have to make, or if you're mailing in the registration for your vehicle, there are deadlines for all those things. They're not squishy deadlines, they're an actual deadline. And if you don't get it in by that date, there's a penalty, or it just doesn't get accepted. And then you have to go and jump through other hoops. So why in the world should our most important element of the voice of we the people in our constitutional republic, why should that be subject to some big squishy long grace period? Like, well, here's election day, but as long as we receive it like a week or a couple of weeks later or something, it's all good. We're a government agency, but in this one realm, we're going to be really soft on you and not really have a hard and fast deadline. It doesn't make any sense until you start looking at the abuse of this system and all of the quote unquote irregularities that happen in our election systems. So I am very enthusiastic about Marcel Sturbich in his campaign. I think that he's the candidate for me, and I'm following him both on and off X, but I find particular delight in the comments that he makes on the social media platform X. You should follow him because he's not holding punches. He's going right after our current Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, so for some of his shortcomings. And he's going head-to-head against this Alison Russo, who now wants it. She wants that position for the ultra-far left.
Okay, so wait a minute. Russo, so she is running. She's going to run for Secretary of State now. That she has signed. Here's the thing.
I think that's in and a done deal.
Okay,
John
so
Plechnik, do you know, is her petition in?
I'm not aware if she filed her petition, but she has declared that she's running for Secretary of State. I believe there is another Democrat running as well. So she's in a primary at this point, not really sure which of them are going to win. And frankly, I don't care. I'm not voting for either one because I think it's time that we say the quiet part out loud. We all know Donald Trump won the presidential election in 2020. That's not a theory. It's not a guess. It's a fact. We're seeing now in Arizona that over 300,000 votes were not properly certified.
Wow.
And that's just one instance of voter fraud in these United States of America. So we all know the only reason why anyone would object to common sense security features on elections like voter ID, like deadlines for voting, is because you don't want an honest tally. You want to make the figure as manipulable as possible. If it's harder to get a plane ticket and fly than it is to vote, to exercise your most important civic right as an American, there's something wrong. And the reality is, you want to get on a plane, they want to see an ID, they want to see a passport, they want to put you through security. You have to register in advance, and if you don't meet the deadline, you ain't flying. If it's harder to get on a flight to go see a baseball game in Chicago or see your friends in California than it is to vote for the number one most important office in the world, there is something wrong, folks, and it is all about voter fraud. Trump won 2020.
Yeah, he did. Okay, look at this. Look at these numbers from 2020. So, Obama got 69 million votes, and he set the record for the Democrats. Okay, Biden got 81 million. 81 million
ballots.
Now look at some of this other stuff. Okay, bellwether states. Obama, when he won, he took 18 of the 19 bellwether states. Trump, when he won, and we're not talking about, we're talking about 2020 here. Trump took 18 of the 19 bellwether states in 2020. That means Biden took one. He took one of the bellwether states.
No, Joe, that's not correct. That's 18 out of 19 bellwether counties.
Oh, bellwether counties? Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, because the bellwether states, the battleground states, Biden took all of those very minusculely, and some of them were, Trump was winning at, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, they stopped counting, and then 6 o'clock in the morning, Biden had won all those states. Yeah, it's not those are the 18 of 19 bellwether counties.
Bellwether counties. But still, okay, so that's a good barometer, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a good barometer. I mean,
It
come
always
on.
is, except for
81
20.
million votes for a guy that was living in his basement, campaigning out of his basement. That's what's so crazy about the whole thing. Yeah, I agree with you, John, 100% about that. But I want to throw something, George, let me throw something at you for a minute. The statewide candidates, the Republican statewide candidates, no one has filed paperwork yet, have they?
That's correct, because I guess they're all hoping that Vivek chooses one of them as lieutenant governor or something. But the Democrats, I believe, have all filed pretty much for their respective primary races, but the Republicans have not.
Okay, that is so weird. That is so weird. Like, Robert Sprague wants to be Secretary of State. Like we were talking about Marcel Stribich. Okay? Mm-hmm. He wants that job. He's got all these people that are endorsing him for that position, but he hasn't filed the paperwork yet. So how much does he really feel that he's got to be Secretary of State? He hasn't even filed the paperwork yet. None of them have.
Joe, right, wrong, or in between, I have consistently heard that the three people Vivek is looking at for his running mate are Robert Sprague, Frank LaRose, and Christina Rogner, probably in that order of seriousness. Now, could it be someone we've never heard of? Could it be a total surprise? Absolutely. But it's fair to say that the chattering class in Columbus thinks that those three are kind of at the top of the list for consideration. So I completely agree with George's conclusion that they're waiting to see who the LG pick is going to be, because Sprague, LaRose, Rogner are all kind of at the top, and they're all looking at running for statewide office and another seat if they're not picked.
Yep. Okay. So I have heard LaRose. You're hearing also Sprague and Christina Rogner, who could be the lieutenant governor that Vivek might choose, right?
Yep, that's what we're hearing.
And which one that you've heard is got the most likely? Is it LaRose or is it Sprague?
For whatever it's worth, I've heard kind of Sprague, LaRose, Rogner in that order, but people are obviously guessing. Unless your name is Vivek Ramaswamy, you don't truly know who's leading that race for lieutenant governor. But I think it's fair to say those three are being looked at, and they believe that they're being considered, which is precisely why they're holding back on filing for another office, because ultimately, if they're the LG, they're going to be on Vivek's petition.
Crazy. So, Brian, it's just one big musical chairs. That's all it is.
Yeah,
just wait.
It's always been that way, but I want to give a shout out to Marcel Stribich. He is the very first statewide candidate that has publicly said that he is supporting our constitutional amendment to abolish property taxes. So we thank Marcel for stepping up and speaking out on behalf of the average citizens of the state of Ohio.
Yeah, I just, to me, it bothers me a lot that guys like Robert Sprague, who want to be Secretary of State, supposedly, haven't filed the paperwork yet. Christina Rogner hasn't filed paper. Like you said, they're waiting for that lieutenant governor position to open up. But where is the, where is it that
drive?
Yeah, where is it that vibe that they want to do this job because they're qualified for it and they're going to do such a great job at it? So that kind of just got thrown out the window.
Well, especially with career politicians, that's for sure. And that certainly absolutely applies to Sprague. I mean, Sprague was he wanted to run for governor from everything we understand. And when Vivek Ramaswamy threw his hat in the ring, he was Sprague was kind of thrown for a loop. He's a career politician. He wanted to figure out a way to continue his career, and so he just shifted his sights to Secretary of State. But backing up a moment, I want to point something out that to me is critical, and we can't possibly lose sight of this. If you find really on any social media platform, I happen to be looking at Facebook on another screen on my monitor. Joe mentioned the endorsements for Robert Sprague for Secretary of State of Ohio. And there are several listed here. Many of them I don't like. They're just rhinos. A few actually I like. But look side by side. Marcel Sturbridge has put a side-by-side endorsement comparison. Who's endorsed Robert Sprague versus who's endorsed Marcel Sturbridge. For Sturbridge, you've got General Michael Flynn, Cleta Mitchell, United, there's national organizations. It's categorized. It's a huge list of good guys that are endorsing Marcel Sturbridge. I hope that the message continues to get out there, because there are some people that are saying, well, yeah, Robert Sprague's got endorsements. Compare that side by side. It is tremendously revealing.
Yeah, so Sturbridge is one of those guys who's in it to do a great job as Secretary of State. And we've had him on the podcast a lot. So, but what bothers me is these people that are just flopping from chair to chair because they're career politicians and they want to just get the best chair that they can get, okay? And that's I know the Democrats do it, the Republicans do it, we all do it, but it's like, that's not the way it's supposed to be, okay? We want to get the good quality, high quality guys in there.
Yep.
Okay, here's something else. I don't know if you guys heard about this with Trump. Listen, you guys know who Steve Gardner is? You should watch Steve Gardner's podcasts. They're just phenomenal. But there's a little
Trump, he actually had a plan that I didn't know about this. This is probably going to be breaking news and new to you. But he had actually formulated a plan to stay dominant and in power for multiple decades. Let me show you what I am talking about. This came out on the Daily Mail. So President Trump and his White House had come up with this multi-year, multi-voting block strategy to keep Republicans and conservatives in power. So here's what they were going to do, basically. President Trump was going to throw all of his support and money behind J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was going to name Charlie Kirk as his vice president. Then those two were going to do everything they could after 8 years to make sure that Charlie Kirk became president of the United States, and his new vice president would be Don Trump Jr.
All right, so Trump had this whole plan of bringing Charlie Kirk in as VP. I'd never heard of that JD. Before. Yeah. Well, he was going to run JD as the president, and they were going to put their support also as Charlie Kirk as the VP, which was interesting. And then eventually try to get Charlie Kirk in as president. So I don't know if anybody had heard of that before. It was news to me, but
I will say this, Joe. It's very well known in conservative circles nationally that Don Jr. is part of the conversation, and I would not at all be surprised to see Vance Trump 2028 with Don Jr. as the VP candidate. It obviously is gonna depend on how the Trump name is polling in 2028 in critical swing states, because Donald Trump and his son are unselfish. Their goal is to make sure that the MAGA movement goes forward. But I think it's very possible. In fact, I think it's very likely that we see Vance Trump 2028 with Don Jr. on the low end of the ticket. So maybe the tragedy of Charlie Kirk has actually advanced Don Trump, Don Jr.'s future 8 years in advance.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because obviously Charlie Kirk cannot be VP now. But
I thought Marco Rubio was in that lineup too. Commissioner, did you Did you think Rubio? Are they just going to push into the side, or is he
Well,
going to be?
Donald Trump had
term-
said, to answer your question, Brian, Donald Trump had said several times that Marco Rubio has been the best Secretary of State, is going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State in U.S. history, and that he could see Vance or Rubio go forward to be his successor as the presidential candidate in 2028. But I think part of that is just Trump being Trump and making sure that his cabinet and his team are competing. So I think that Trump has always viewed Vance, as most presidents do, has always viewed his VP as his most likely successor. And while I don't rule out Marco Rubio as playing a role in a future administration, whether it be as the VP or continuing as Secretary of State, I think he is a powerful advocate. It's also true that Marco Rubio was not an original part of the Trump team. And you definitely see that Trump is loyal first and foremost. He values people who are loyal to him. And let's be honest, 2016, it was Trump versus little Marco. And while Marco Rubio, I think, has grown and recognized that reconciliation with Trump was the path forward for America, he was not an original member of Team Trump. And so I'm not sure that he's going to be, in the direct line of succession as a result of that. J.D. Vance is probably going to be our 2028 nominee. I think Erica Kirk's endorsement and Marco Rubio seconding that endorsement very shortly thereafter is powerful evidence that Vance is the plan for 2028. But I really do think Don Jr. is a highly likely candidate for VP in the next round because, let's be honest, with a name like Trump, how can you lose?
Yeah, that's a good point. So they want to keep it all in the family, but the Trump name is so powerful, it probably does make sense. Let me throw a question out to you guys. Who do you think the Democrats would run in 2028? Any thoughts on that one?
Well, I hope it's AOC. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. That would be
great.
That'd be a walk in the park if it's AOC.
She deserves the recognition. Yes.
There's a lot of talk about who is that? The governor of California, Newsom.
Gavin Newsom.
Newsom.
He's most likely.
Gretchen Whitmer
I think it's time for us as a society to have a more serious conversation, though. We know the Democrats are likely to put forward a joke candidate like an AOC or a Gavin Newsom. And if and to the extent by some crazy turn of events they got elected, it would be devastating to America. But let's talk seriously. If we were to have a real Democrat Party, if RFK, if JFK were here today and were running the party, they would actually, I think, press pause and say, we've got good leadership now under Trump. We should have unity. We should actually nominate whoever Trump supports. I mean, I'm not joking. If we had a real Democrat Party that was truly American and not communist, they'd say, President Trump, you've done an amazing job. We're ready to nominate J.D. Vance. We don't have any candidate who's ready because there's no one ready for prime time. If we're being honest, there is no Democrat who would be a suitable president of the United States on the national level right now. We can think of people who would mess things up and would cause a disaster, but there's no one we could name that would seriously do a good job.
Like Tim Walz for the job?
Tampon
I'd bring
Tim.
back Kamala. Yeah.
They might
I
go
guess
with
we're gonna
Kamala.
build- we're
Listen,
gonna
I
build
heard
the walls
rumors. I heard rumors that they are going to run Kamala and Tampon Tim again because they want to save money on their yard signs. You know.
I see. Yes.
Let me ask. We're probably going to wrap it up a little bit earlier tonight. Let me ask you a question, though. Should we be concerned at all with this guy here? And that is the guy in the red. He's at a bar. He's been hanging out at a lot of bars doing round table discussions. That's Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown versus John Husted. Is there anything to worry about, do you think, with him? Any thoughts?
Of course, always.
And specifically what, though?
He knows the levers of power. He knows them well. I'm actually looking up now. Here it is. Okay. I pulled it up. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. This is a book on tape. This is the Peter Schweitzer book, Profiles in Corruption. Chapter 6, it's not focusing. Chapter 6 in Profiles in Corruption by Peter Schweitzer is titled Sherrod Brown. The national book of some of the most corrupt people in all of politics. Chapter 6, that's Sherrod Brown. He, of course we have to worry about him because he grew fat on the teat of government job. I don't think he's worked a day in his life. He was gravy trained into mass corruption, according to this book from Peter Schweitzer, and he knows all those levers to pull. He goes out there to the unions, and he's good at politicking. He goes out there and hits all those high notes and convinces I don't even know how he does it, but he does. He's good at it. He's got a machine that convinces people that he's out there, quote unquote, fighting for the little guy and fighting for the unions and the hard-working farmers and workers of Ohio, etc. And that's this shtick that he's built, this sort of tagline. And it's crazy, but it's worked. And he gets a lot of crossover vote. He gets a lot of actual, real live Republicans that vote for the guy because they've been snowed by this marketing machine that the guy has.
Yeah, he's a great politician.
That's why we worry.
No doubt about it. He's a great one. Hey, I'll throw out George here. George, what do you think? Any thoughts about that with Sherrod Brown? Is he something to be concerned about? Do you think?
Well, obviously, he's good at raising money. He's also, with the name game Brown. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I remember Clarence Brown, Bud Brown. I remember Auditor Ted Brown. So Brown has a resonating name both in the Democrat and Republican circles. So people get confused because, again, they don't read, they don't study. A lot of times, especially in Cuyahoga County, it's the name game, but obviously running statewide. But Brown's a nice, quote, normal sounding name. And he's good at raising money. And he's good at telling people what they want to hear, and he's sort of affable, even though he's the disgusting socialist communist pig. But it's easy to bamboozle the masses.
Do you think a lot of people aren't even aware that he's not the senator? I mean, people are just so clueless in politics, and he's been out 2 years, but he's been in for 50.
Right.
I wonder if a lot of people still think that he's the senator.
Yeah, that's a strong possibility because Houston has, relatively low profile. He was lieutenant governor, and he just got appointed to fill that vacancy, and he has to run again. So it's sort of seamless, Brown running for that seat again. People are like, oh, yeah, he's the senator or whatever. But, again, maybe they're confusing him with the Cleveland Browns. I don't know.
Yeah, they might be doing that.
In that instance, I mean, this is one Brown that I can handle consistently losing.
Yeah, right. So we are going to wrap it up a little bit earlier tonight, but I do want, with Christmas just a couple days away, is there any kind of a Christmas sentiment or anything you want to say, Brian?
Well, let me just say to Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm appealing to you to start thinking about the average citizens and being priced out of their home. People keep voting for all these property tax levies. They're gonna lose the American dream, and we would hope that Vivek Ramaswamy, based on what has transpired this past week, I'm saying it's not good enough, Vivek. You got to start thinking about the average citizen. Stop thinking about these data centers, bringing these data centers in that will only bring in 20 to maybe 50 employees. They're going to use all our natural resources. They're going to use all the electricity where the citizens are going to have less electricity. They're going to use all of our natural resources of water. They're going to pollute the water. And we've given all of those data centers no property taxes for many, many, many years. So I'm appealing to Vivek Ramaswamy to start thinking about the average citizen and the American dream in Ohio.
Oh, wow. Amen to that. Amen to that. All right. Does anybody have a Christmas sentiment you want to say before we wrap it up? I mean, Christmas is coming.
Joe, I want to say I was at Medina County Friends and Neighbors Christmas party last week, and the speaker was Mayor Matt Miller of Ashland. I guess he's also a pastor, trained as a pastor, licensed as a pastor, whatever. But his Christmas message, and I'm sorry, I saw somebody recording it. I wish I would have recorded it. And it's hard for me to synthesize and summarize it. It was basically 20 minutes long. But basically, that Christ was born for a specific reason, and obviously, we know what it is. But but he just got into all kind of details, and the message of Christianity as emanating from the birth of Christ. So I'm going to try to get that. I saw somebody videoing it, and I know who it is, but it was so powerful, and it almost left me weeping. And I was thinking, darn, I wish my daughters could hear that. Not that they're atheists or non-Christians, but it was such a powerful Christian message. I do want to give kudos to Mayor Matt Miller of Ashland, a tremendous intellect and speaker in his own right.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah.
Well, I wish I'd been there. Joe,
Yes.
that's George's comment reminded me of something, so I will interject something here. I didn't catch much of the America Fest. I've just been too busy with other things, but some snippets did get through to me. My wife actually shared video of Russell Brand. Every once in a while, I catch Russell Brand mostly on Rumble. He shows up in my feed, and I like a lot of what he has to say. And he's got a really unique way of putting things and interesting perspective. But his speech that he gave at America Fest, it's worth going and watching. I think it's really good, and a huge part of it really it's spot on, I think, and it relates to the message of Christmas and Christianity. One other thing, so when it comes to Christmas, I have on my wish list for Ohio and for our nation for more people to pay attention to local politics. Please do. I'm asking you, if you like this show, if you approve of my voice, you like me, please follow local politics. Get involved in some way, shape, or form. If that's local school board, or use Precinct Strategy. Remember, there are two websites, one dedicated to Ohio, that's ohioprecinctstrategy.org. There's also the national precinctstrategy.com. My friend Dan Schultz set that up. But get involved locally. If we start that in 2026, we really can turn things around. We took a major blow when the powers that be silenced the voice of Bob France in northern Ohio, but we can fight back by getting involved ourselves at the local level. Let's do it for 2026.
Oh, amen to that. Okay, and also I'll let Commissioner No have the final word tonight. So, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah, Merry
Jesus
Christmas.
is the reason for the season.
Merry Christmas.
Do you have a last
Amen.
eulogy? Amen.
Let me tell you something. My New Year's resolution is to abolish property taxes in 2026. If they call me Commissioner No, it's because we always vote no on taxes, and we are done. We are done with these ever-increasing property taxes, taxing seniors out of their homes. If the state reps and senators won't do their job, we're going to do it for them. Our New Year's resolution, no property taxes 2026. It ain't just Commissioner No anymore. All of Ohio is saying no to property taxes.
Amen to that, guys. You know, I have a New
Thanks,
Year's
Commissioner.
resolution, and that is to stay up until midnight. I'll try to do it this year. You guys
Good night.
have a nice Christmas. See you.
All right. Good night.